My name is Alina Marius Castellano, 32 years old. The phone started ringing before I reached the door, a thin electronic trill that shouldn't have made my pulse spike. Nick's car was in the driveway. He'd left early for site visits, so I assumed the place would be empty. I fumbled the keys, stepped inside, and froze just past the hall table. The office door was cracked. Nick's voice, low, careful, threaded through the gap. Yes, the full package. Work hours, lunch breaks, after work, everything. My hand still hovered over the bowl where we drop our keys. I could see his shoulder through the sliver of light, his head tilted, palm pressed over part of the phone like he was buffering the sound. If she's innocent, he said, she shouldn't mind being followed. The words landed like ice water on a bruise I hadn't admitted to. I stayed in the hall, slipping my shoes off without sound. He gave the investigator my license plate, my office, a photo he'd clearly lifted from my phone. Then, casual as an email subject line, she's been distant, checking out. My friend said her girl did all that before she caught him. Her girl. I almost laughed. There is a specific kind of irony you taste when you hear the person you kiss goodnight ordering surveillance on your life. I stepped back onto the porch, reopened the front door with deliberate noise, and called, "Babe, forgot my badge." By the time I reached the office, he was scrolling a browser window, innocent as fresh primer. "Hey," he smiled, standing, kissing my cheek. "Thought you were already at work." "Left my badge," I said, lifting a coaster on his desk as if that's where I'd put it. "Drive safe," he said, hands in his pockets like a man who hadn't just outsourced trust. That night, I lay awake and diagrammed my options in the dark like a blueprint. Ask him. He lies. Pretend I misheard. Become a ghost in my own life. Or, my favorite, borrow his logic. The beautiful thing about our town is that it's small but competitive. There are only a handful of PI firms, and they all know each other. It took 2 calls to find the right one. "Brennan Investigations," a gravelly voice answered. "Leonard speaking." "Hi, Leonard. My boyfriend just hired a PI to follow me." Long pause. "Ma'am, I can't discuss our clients." "I don't want you to. I want to hire you too. Same package, but for him." Silence, then the sound of a pen clicking. "That's unusual." "He says if I'm innocent, I shouldn't mind being followed. Same logic applies." Another pause that felt like the kind where someone does quick math. "When would you like to start?" "Yesterday," I said. "And I want premium. Social media deep dive. Financial patterns. If he sneezes near a receipts drawer, I want to know." "That's significantly more expensive." "I have savings." I didn't add that the savings had a purpose. A beach trip for his birthday. Surprise, repurposed. The first week felt like walking through a museum where the security cameras were pointed at me and at him, and I was the only one who knew. I did exactly what I always do. Clock in at the design firm, eat a chopped salad, walk past the florist with the pale pink ranunculus in the window, and pretend not to fall in love with them. Text Nick at lunch, "How's your day?" and get back. Good. Busy. Might run late. He ran late 3 times. Twice he came home smelling like the inside of a hotel. Subtle, universal, clean. 2 weeks in, Leonard texted, "Reports ready. In person?" We met at a diner with a cracked red booth and coffee that apologized by being endless. He slid 2 folders across the table. One was thin and boring. The other was heavy enough to bruise. "This one's yours," he said, tapping the light folder. "Work, lunch, home. You saw your friend Luna Thursday. Your life is admirably predictable." "No offense taken," I said. He opened the thicker folder like it might hiss. "His is more interesting. Photos, timestamps, a rhythm you recognize when you've dated someone long enough to know the beat of their week. Monday, Brianna Cole, a coworker from Nick's site team, laughing with him at a sushi place I can't afford on impulse. 2 hours. He pays. Tuesday, dentist, but the calendar icon geotags a day spa across town. No posts. Wednesday, he tells me he's staying late to close out a site, but Leonard's team photographs him at an apartment viewing downtown, 2-bedroom, thick gray carpet, and brass fixtures. The agent's notes. Lovely couple. Move-in flexible. My stomach flipped so hard I had to grip the edge of the table. Leonard slid a second stack forward. Credit card activity patterns. Doubled dining spend on the days he works late. A lingerie purchase 2 days before he turned his back to me for a week. Hotel bar charges when he said he was at his mom's. I breathed through my teeth. Anything else? Leonard's mouth tugged in something not quite pity. He uses a private Instagram. Motivational tiles. Know your worth. Some people outgrow their cages. Comments from friends. You deserve better, King. And there's a group chat screenshot. He turned the screen of a company phone toward me. I read the words, then read them again, because some betrayals are written like they're proud of themselves. Nick, if I can get proof she's flirting / DMing someone, I'm golden. Friend, dude, just catch her late once. Nick, already hired a guy. If she's clean, whatever. If not, my exit's clean. Nick, Brianna's lease up in 2 months. Timeline works. The forks on the table suddenly seemed very loud. The waitress refilled our coffee and retreated like she'd learned how to read storms. Keep following him, I said. My voice sounded far away. I want everything about Brianna. Where, when, who else she's deceiving. If she has a boyfriend, a fiancé, a dog, a goldfish named Honesty. Everything. Leonard nodded. There's something else. He tapped a page at the back. It was a screenshot of Nick's call to Brennan Investigations, my personal favorite irony on loop. Full package on my girlfriend. She shouldn't mind being followed. Blonde coworker, mid-20s, check her. He meant Luna. I swallowed a laugh that didn't feel like mine. I stared at the paper until the letters became shapes, then at the window, where an old couple shared pancakes with a choreography built from decades. There's a terrible, clarifying piece that comes after a high-quality betrayal. The part of you that keeps negotiating finally sits down. My boyfriend's aunt hosts a family reunion every summer, I said. This year's next Saturday. Leonard blinked. That's fast. Good theater doesn't drag, I said. Can your audio be clean enough to play on a Bluetooth speaker? He tilted his head as if reconsidering my thin folder, then smiled for the first time. Absolutely. That week, I went through motions like I was dubbing my life. At work, I nested in renderings and turned kitchens into invitations. At home, I cooked and set a place for the man whose voice I could not unheard. He was affectionate, performative, attentive in the way of people who are rehearsing for an audience. Friday night, he tested me, thinking of surprising you at work for lunch Monday. Would you like that? The bait was practically labeled. That'd be great, I said, smiling. Text me first so I'm not in a client meeting. His face fell 1 millimeter, not the confession he ordered. On Saturday, I baked the lemon bars his grandma liked and drove to the reunion with a playlist that felt like armor. The backyard was a small town of folding chairs and laughter. Sharon, his mother, hugged me too hard. Our Alina, she said, like claiming me could keep me. During the toast about family and loyalty, I stood. If I could add something, I said, voice steady enough to surprise myself. I've learned a lot this month about trust. Specifically, how innocent people don't mind being seen. Nick glanced at me, then at his aunt's Bluetooth speaker I'd politely helped set up earlier when I offered to DJ. Alina, he said lightly, what are you... I pressed play. His voice filled the hydrangea-rimmed air. Full package. Work, lunch, after. If she's innocent, she shouldn't mind. Silence arrived like a flock. Sharon's glass ticked against her ring. And because I agree, I said, I hired the same PI to follow you. Gasps have flavors. This one tasted like metal. I tapped my phone. The TV on the covered patio lit up. Simple slideshow. Nick and Brianna at Suki Sushi, her hand on his forearm. The building lobby camera still. 10:57 p.m., Tuesday. Her door opening. The apartment tour note projected in 72-point font. Lovely couple. My voice didn't shake. There's more. Group chat. Don't care if Alina's cheating. I just need the accusation. Brianna's lease ends in 2 months. Nick reached for my phone. I stepped back without looking at him. His grandmother, tiny, steel-spined, broke the spell first. Nicholas. Sharon whispered, "Oh, God." I looked across the yard and found Brianna's face in the crowd I hadn't realized she'd joined, her mouth a thin white line. She wasn't the first woman to mistake someone else's house for a future. I didn't say anything else. There's a point where evidence finishes talking and nothing you add improves the sound. I picked up the lemon bars and set them on the dessert table like this was any other Saturday, then walked past the stunned rows of relatives, out through the side gate, into a heat that felt clean. My hands shook only once, at the car door, then steadied. As the engine turned over, my phone buzzed. Leonard, Want to continue surveillance next week or wrap? I stared at the text, then typed, wrap, and send everything to my email. I have one more appointment Monday. I didn't add the name, Dr. Morrison, an address, the words crisis intervention, the guest list. Nick didn't know I'd already seen Nick, Sharon, Brianna. If innocent people don't mind being seen, I thought, then Monday will be a mirror. The video kept playing after I left. At least that's what the buzzing group chat suggested as I drove home in a heat that felt like it had been scrubbed with steel wool. A cousin posted crying emojis. Another typed just, wow. Sharon called me twice. I let both go to voicemail and turned the music up until the bass smudged the noise in my chest. By the time I parked, the light had gone that sweet late afternoon gold that makes even cracked sidewalks look forgiving. I carried the lemon bars inside, set them on the counter like they hadn't just accompanied a detonation, and stood in my kitchen breathing carefully. Every betrayal I've ever survived left a scent. This one smelled like toner and cherries, and the faint antiseptic of someone else's hotel. My phone rattled on the counter, Sharon again. Then Nick, then Nick, then Nick. I silenced it and opened my laptop. In my inbox, Leonard's email was waiting like a patient animal. Subject, Consolidated Reports, Arden. Attachments stacked. Photos, credit card spreadsheets, social polls, transcriptions, the audio clip that made a backyard stop breathing. I dragged the folder to 2 different external drives and a cloud I paid extra to encrypt. Then I opened a new message, addressed it to a name Leonard had found with one polite question to the apartment leasing agent. To Mike. Langley at. Subject, you deserve the truth about Brianna. Body. I think you should see this. I'm sorry. I attached a curated subset, the dates, the apartment tour, the 11:57 p.m. Hallway still. I deleted 3 sentences that sounded righteous and hit send before I could dress it up. Honesty rarely needs adjectives. I'd barely poured water when my doorbell chimed. Through the peephole, Sharon, rigid in a cream cardigan like bones, clutching her phone. I opened the door 2 inches. Alina, she began, voice soft like gauze. That was unnecessary. Necessary, I said. She blinked, the way people blink when the script gets rewritten. Couldn't you have talked to me first? To us? A family isn't a stage? I offered. You're right, it's not. But your son turned it into one when he hired a private investigator to narrate my life. Color rose in her cheeks. She lowered her voice. Let Nick explain. I let him explain on tape, I said, and closed the door gently. I pulled out my phone, opened in the locksmith app I'd downloaded on the drive home, and scheduled a Sunday 8 a.m. lock change with the calm triumph of a woman ordering flowers. Then I took the lemon bars to Luna's on foot because some victories needed co-witnessing. We ate them in silence at her table, powdered sugar dusting our knuckles like absolution. Monday? She asked finally. Intervention, I said. 2 o'clock, my place. They booked a therapist, Dr. Morrison, like you book a mariachi band. Want me in the bedroom with a foghorn? I smiled for the first time that day. Tempting. They arrived early Monday, 10 minutes before the hour, in that brittle, organized way people carry themselves when their version of the story has already been ironed. Sharon in the cream cardigan, jaw clenched. Nick holding a composition notebook like a prop. Dr. Morrison, crisp blouse, the posture of a woman trained to redirect hurricanes with a pen. And Brianna, in a navy dress the exact shade of plausible deniability. Alina, Dr. Morrison said, voice balanced like a scale, thank you for opening your home in a vulnerable time. I didn't, I said, stepping back to let them in. They did. We arranged ourselves in my living room like a corporate team-building exercise, me on the cream sofa, under the curtains that still hummed with last week's shoot, Sharon on the edge of the armchair like it might confess, Brianna flanking Nick like an argument, Dr. Morrison claiming the ottoman with a pad in her lap. Let's set a few ground rules, the therapist began, palms open. No raised voices, no interruptions. This is a space for repair. Repair what? I asked. A scaffolding built from lies? Alina, Sharon warned, as if I were a teenager testing a curfew. Ms. Castellano, Dr. Morrison said smoothly. Nick shared that he felt you were pulling away. He hired a private investigator from a place of concern. Concern, I repeated, tasting it. He hired surveillance because he projected. Classic. Nick finally looked at me, and the performance fell into place. Round eyes, hurt jaw, the tiny shake of the head that reads, "I'm devastated. Please love me better." "I didn't know what else to do," he said. "You hide your phone, you work late." "I work late on designs because that's my job," I said, "and I hide my phone from people who go through it." "You see?" Sharon turned to Dr. Morrison, bright, eager. "She's combative." The therapist shifted seamlessly. "Alina, can you understand how your defensiveness might confirm Nick's fears?" I felt my mouth curve. Small, dangerous. "I can understand projection, and I can also understand that fears don't rent apartments." Brianna's chin lifted. "That was a tour," she said. "We were just looking." "As a lovely couple," I said, per the agent's notes. "We're friends," she snapped. "Friends who go to Romanos and charge $300 dinners on a card Nick keeps in his second wallet?" I tilted my head. "Friends who go silent at 11:57 p.m. on Tuesdays?" Brianna's cheeks bloomed. She glanced at the therapist. "This is inappropriate. She's attacking me." "Congruence is uncomfortable," I said softly, "but it isn't an attack." "Alina," Dr. Morrison tried again, authorial, "when you hired your own investigator, can you see how that escalated things? 2 wrongs." "Don't make a marriage," I finished. "We're not married. And even if we were, a mirror isn't a wrong. It's just clarity." Nick leaned forward, palms up. "I made mistakes. I admit that. But we can fix this." "With an apartment lease?" I asked. He flushed. "I didn't sign anything." "Yet," I said. The therapist changed tacks. "Let's discuss why you felt the need to gather evidence in front of Nick's family. Public humiliation rarely leads to intimacy." I almost laughed. "What leads to intimacy is honesty. What leads to endings is the deliberate manufacture of false accusations." I looked at Nick. "Your group chat said you needed an accusation to make the exit clean. That wasn't fear. That was strategy." A vein in his temple jumped. "You took that out of context." "Which context redeems the words, 'I don't care if she's cheating or not'?" I asked. "I'll wait." Silence puddled on the rug. From the hallway, my phone pinged. I ignored it. Dr. Morrison lifted her pen. "Alina, would you be willing to table the evidence and talk about your feelings?" "Gladly," I said. "I feel insulted, then bored. Insulted because you showed up with your mother and your girlfriend at an intervention about my boundaries. Bored because nothing you're saying is new. I've been gaslit before. It's a weak light." Sharon shot to her feet. "You will not." "Sharon," I said quietly. She froze. "Sit down." She did. Nick switched tactics. Tears purled on his lashes with mechanized precision. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "It just got exciting. I forgot what we had." My jaw went soft with a sad kind of pity at the rehearsal of it. "You forgot because you never really built it." I stood, crossed to the console table, and returned with a small stack of papers clipped and squared. I handed them to Dr. Morrison. "Since you like structure," I said, "a timeline, receipts, GPS polls, apartment agent notes, the group chat." The therapist skimmed the top page. For a second, the professionalism wavered, and something human peered out. She set the papers on her lap like a hot pan. "This is comprehensive," she said. "Above board," I said. Leonard made sure. "Also," I glanced at Brianna, "Mike says hi." Brianna blinked. "What?" I gestured toward the hallway. "Your boyfriend, or fiancé, depending on which platform he's on. He received a polite digest this morning." Her phone vibrated. She looked down. The color drained from her face so fast I thought she might faint. "Don't," I said gently. "Sit." She sat. Sharon pressed the heel of her hand to her forehead. "Alina, please, you're better than this." "I am," I said, "which is why this ends here." Dr. Morrison nodded slowly. "Then, your boundary?" "My boundary," I said, "is no more interventions, no more staged repentance, no more access. Nick, you'll collect your things with the locksmith present at noon tomorrow. The lease is in my name. You'll be gone by 5. Do not return without a written invitation. Do not contact me through your mother. Do not weaponize Dr. Morrison." The therapist had the decency to look faintly amused. Duly noted. Nick stood. The tears were gone. In their place, anger. "You humiliated me in front of my family." "You did that," I said. "I just used the speaker." He stepped forward. "Alina." I raised a hand. "Don't." He stopped, breathing hard. "You'll regret this." "Regret," I said, "was the woman I was before I called Brennan Investigations." He stared at me for a long, theatrical beat, then turned on his heel. Sharon followed him to the door, pausing only to squeeze my arm like I was a child refusing a bite of vegetables. "You're making a mistake," she hissed. "Men slip. Families forgive." "Men decide," I said. "So do women." They left. The apartment exhaled. Brianna lingered, phone in her lap like a detonated device. "Mike won't answer," she whispered. "Give him time," I said. "He's making a new choice." She looked at me with something like loathing and something like grief, then left without closing the door fully. I pushed it shut and leaned my forehead against it. The wood felt cool. The day was very quiet. In the kitchen, my phone vibrated again. A text preview glowed up from unknown. "This is Dr. Morrison. For what it's worth, good boundaries are the only repair that works." I stared at the screen, then typed back, "Appreciated. Please invoice Nick. He's the client." 10 minutes later, Leonard's name popped up. Leonard. "Wrap and archive?" Me. "Wrap. Send summary." Leonard. "You want the last 2 stills?" Me. "No, I have enough." I set my phone down, opened in the windows, and let fresh air burn out the last of the perfume of performance. Then I pulled a rolling suitcase from the closet and set it by the door. Clothes only, no gifts. At noon tomorrow, I'd have the locks changed while Nick watched. At 5, I'd toss anything left to the curb. At 6, I'd drive to my nephew's practice with a bag of orange slices and a whistle, and discover that yelling, "Hustle," feels better than hissing, "Prove it." At 8, I'd pour 1 glass of wine, sit beneath the curtains that didn't lie, and watch a movie I could hear the whole way through. When the doorbell rang again, I didn't flinch. I checked the peephole. No one. On the mat, a florist box. Inside, a single bottle of wine with a white card. "From Jessica Lane, thank you for the heads up." Bullet dodged. I placed the bottle on the counter, smiled without meaning to, and deleted Nick's contact. By the time the locksmith arrived the next day, the morning sun had already turned my apartment into something almost too bright to look at. Dust motes danced in the light, tiny ghosts of the life I was finally vacuuming out. "Change all of them," I said, handing him the old brass keys. He nodded, efficient and silent. Metal clicked and fell. Each new bolt that slid into place sounded like punctuation. Period, period, period. Nick came at noon, right on schedule. Eyes red-rimmed, pretending he hadn't spent the night composing speeches he'd never get to give. I'd boxed his things neatly. No anger, just inventory. Shirts, laptop, toothbrush. I kept the kitchenware. He lingered in the doorway, scanning the apartment like he could memorize it one last time. "You're really doing this?" "I already did," I said. He gave a hollow laugh. "You think this makes you the hero?" "No," I said quietly. "Just the survivor." When he finally left, I watched from the window as he hesitated at the curb, glancing back like a man expecting applause. Then he got in his car and drove away. The locksmith finished. "New locks, new start," he said with a grin. Exactly. The first week after Nick was gone, the silence felt foreign. The kind of quiet that almost hums because you're not used to peace yet. I kept expecting a knock, a text, some half-hearted attempt at reconciliation. None came. Instead, my phone pinged with something better. An email from Leonard. Subject: Case closed. Final summary. Body: You were right. He was wrong. Evidence archived and secure. Thank you for making my month more interesting than usual. Most clients don't play chess. They just react. You planned. Stay sharp. Attached was one last photo. Nick walking down a city sidewalk alone, hands in pockets, head down. The caption: End of surveillance. I smiled, closed the file, and deleted the folder from my desktop. For good. A week later, a friend texted me a link. "Is this your ex?" It was a video. Someone from the reunion had uploaded the footage to TikTok. The audio clip, the slideshow, the collective gasp from his family as his double life unraveled. 2 million views in 3 days. The comments were brutal. "She's an icon for the Bluetooth reveal." Nick thought he was the PI. Turns out she was the FBI. Bro tried to outsmart a designer. She designed the downfall. I didn't share it. I didn't need to. The universe had already done that for me. Then came the apology texts. First from Sharon. "Families forgive. You made your point. Don't you think it's time to move on?" Delete. Then from Nick's cousin, the one who filmed it. "Sorry if the video caused trouble, but honestly, it's legendary." Archive. And finally, from Nick himself, 2 weeks later, long and desperate. "I miss you. I didn't mean for it to go that far. Brianna used me. We could start over. I've started therapy. Please, Alina." I stared at the blinking dots as he typed again. Then I blocked the number. Brianna didn't fare better. Word spread fast. Her boyfriend, Mike, left her the day after I'd sent the email. He even thanked me through Leonard, who seemed oddly proud of being the accidental middleman in the universe's justice system. A month later, I got another unexpected message, a sleek white envelope with gold edges. Inside was a card, signed in neat cursive. Jessica Lane, thank you for the warning. I was one coffee date away from going back to him. You saved me a year I'll never have to waste. A bottle of rosé came with it. I laughed until I cried. Then I poured myself a glass. Life didn't rebound overnight. It rebuilt in fragments. I joined a woodworking class that met on Thursdays. Leonard's idea, actually, when he joked in an email about learning to build instead of surveil. I started volunteering at my nephew's soccer practice, where the kids didn't care about gossip or betrayal, just orange slices and high fives. One of them, a quiet boy with curly hair, asked, "Coach Alina, is it true you used to be a detective?" "Something like that," I said, smiling. "But now I just help people build better teams." He nodded solemnly, like I'd told him a secret. 3 months passed. I barely thought about Nick anymore. Until one night, while scrolling LinkedIn, I saw it. Nick Arden viewed your profile, 2x. I clicked on his page. New job title, consultant. No company listed. His profile photo was cropped, hiding the background. Probably a coffee shop. Probably where he rehearsed apologies that no one wanted. He sent a connection request. I declined. He sent another. I blocked. Then, for good measure, I changed my privacy settings, my passwords, and finally my Netflix login. There are some things you don't risk losing again. One evening, Leonard's name appeared on my caller ID. "Miss Castellano," he said cheerfully. "Guess who tried to hire me again?" I didn't have to guess. "She wanted to know why her dates keep ghosting her," he said, chuckling. "Professional ethics." I declined. I laughed into the phone. Appreciate the restraint. He hesitated. "You doing okay?" "Better than okay." "Good, because I've got to say, you're my favorite case. Not many people turn betrayal into a masterclass." "Then let's never make a sequel," I said. He laughed. "Deal." That night, I sat on my sofa, the same one under the soft, forgiving light of the Serafina curtains, and queued up a movie. The theater system hummed to life, courtesy of the refund from the engagement ring he never got to give me. As the opening credits rolled, I caught my reflection in the black screen for a moment before it faded. I didn't look like someone broken. I looked like someone rebuilt. Halfway through the movie, I muted the sound, leaned back, and listened to the silence, my silence, stretching warm and wide across the apartment. Nick once said, "Innocent people don't mind being watched." He was right, but for the wrong reasons. Innocent people don't hide. They live with the lights on. And me? I'd built my life out of receipts, not regrets.